loss to the Suns. Let's start with the biggest story here, which is the altercation between Pat Bev and DeAndre Ayton. And I guess Devin Booker and Austin Reeves were tangentially involved too, to some extent. Look, I'll say this. I don't condone what Pat Beverly did in regards to just kind of like, which could have potentially escalated something a lot bigger than what we actually saw. But I get it. Last year, nobody would have done that for this team. And while I don't condone the actions, this is part of the reason why the Lakers brought him in.
Yeah. I mean, I think first and foremost, Patrick Beverly completely overreacted. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think Devin Booker definitely started the taunting of Austin Reeves when he was down and didn't really get called for hitting him in the face. And then there's no doubt that Ayton is kind of standing over him. But George, Anthony Davis is standing right next to Ayton, and he's not shoving him or pushing him out of the way. And I think Patrick Beverly could have very easily come over and just sort of pushed him and made his same point. But that is an enforcer, and this Laker team did not have that sort of personality. So on one hand, I think he overreacted, and on the other hand, I loved it.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I think ultimately when you look at this situation, it's about, to me at least, it's about the referees actually should have stepped in way sooner than anyone else, because as soon as, as to your point, Devin Booker was kind of on top of him, right? And Booker in his postgame with Chris Haynes said, look, it became more than it should have been. And I agree with him. I agree with him because I think the officials did a poor job of stepping in that situation, which then led to Pat Bev feeling like he needed to take matters into his own hands. And you saw immediately he was barking at the official after the fact for a long stretch of time. And I think, unfortunately for Pat Bev, I think this is going to be a situation where, you know, he gets ejected. He's probably going to miss some time if I had to guess. I mean, he's definitely going to get fined, and he's probably going to get a suspension if I had to guess.
I just final thought on it, though. I don't hate it, meaning it's the kind of move where other teams who think they can disrespect your players, no matter who it is.
I get it.
The fact that Patrick Beverly comes to his teammates' defense sends a message to everybody else: don't disrespect us like that.
I don't think there's any question. Most teams in this league have at least one of those guys, particularly the teams that are considered playoff teams. And that is Pat Beverly's role. Again, I don't condone hitting him, I guess, sort of in the back or whatever, and potentially causing something that was bigger. But I get it. I get it. I'm not condoning the behavior, just explaining it. And I do get it. All right, let's move on to the next thing. Obviously, the Lakers fall to the Suns, as I mentioned at the beginning. Look, we'll get to Anthony Davis in a second, but here's one of these things. You and I talked about it on the radio. This team, for as well as guys like Lonnie Walker are playing, for as nice a minutes and the depth that a guy like Thomas Bryant adds, and we'll see Schroeder eventually come along, and Russ had a good game. Austin Reeves played pretty well. There's just not enough on this team even to beat a team like the Suns, who's missing two of their big rotation pieces.
And the other part of it is that when you find yourself down by 10 points in the second quarter, and then you have to battle back, and then you take a lead going into halftime, and then you find yourself in the third quarter getting down by 10 yet again and battling back. I mean, you're giving out a lot of energy having to fight back in these games. And so when you give up these leads and then you have to go on these runs, look, there was that time where Bryant, what's the kid's name that George, you just mentioned his name, the backup, Thomas Bryant. This kid, I mean, this is only the second game I've seen him play. And there was a point where he scored 8 points to Phoenix's 3 points. Like, he actually had himself a period of time where he was a major contributor. But if you were to look at the box score right now, what you'll really see is Anthony Davis, another huge performance. Like you said, we'll get to it. Russell Westbrook put up points tonight, although I will say there are times when he drives to the basket where you assume he's going to be able to finish no problem, and he doesn't finish. And it really, at times, you needed those points. And he's going to make his move and get to the basket, and he just can't finish. And then Lonnie Walker. I mean, outside of those three guys, that was like 90% of your scoring time.
Yeah, and I think Russ kind of fell in love with the three, probably a little too much for my liking. I don't think, I know he hit a couple, but, 6 3-pointers is not what I want him doing. To your point, I want him going to the basket, going downhill, and creating opportunities for himself or for others. And look, he didn't have a great free throw shooting night either, and maybe that had something to do with it. But nonetheless, he's got to stick to what I think he's best at, which is going downhill. I thought you made a great point there.
And you know what? I'll say this. The whole 3-point shooting issue that the Lakers have, it started with game 1 where LeBron told everybody we don't have any lasers on this team. If you looked at the number of 3-point shots that Phoenix took and made, they were about 50% on the night, and the Lakers were like 4 of 20. So the disparity in the number of threes taken and the number of threes made by Phoenix versus what the Lakers did tonight. And I don't know about you, George, but I was surprised how many threes seemed uncontested by Phoenix tonight.
You're saying Phoenix shooting uncontested?
Yeah, I felt like where was a body, a hand in somebody's face?
Well, and they're a pretty good 3-point shooting team. Particularly, you can't give Mikal Bridges the corners. Like that's not. And we know Devin Booker obviously is going to put up a lot of shots, but Bridges has been a guy who's shooting like 40% or close to it, and certainly from the corners, he's one of the best guys in the league at near 45%. So yeah, they've got guys that can shoot the rock. So you gotta not get lost defensively. And I feel like at times, to your point, guys got lost from them for sure. Look, let's get to the guy that mattered the most here and has been on a complete tear. He had an unprecedented historical night, Anthony Davis. Well, maybe not unprecedented because there has been only one other person that's done this, but a historical night nonetheless. 35 plus points, 20 plus rebounds, 5 blocks, 5 steals. Only Bob McAdoo has done that in a game before, once a Laker great as well. And, you know, it's just going to show you that you and I have talked about Anthony Davis, and we got to see this Anthony Davis. And when he had the first one of these 35 and 15 games, I said, you know, he's only had 4 in his Laker career. And I want to see more of them because Shaq had 26 over a span of 9 years. Well, I feel like he's put up basically 3 more since. Right. So he's certainly the guy that is the focal point and should be the focal point moving forward, regardless of who's on the floor. And I would imagine LeBron is watching this saying, okay, finally, he's playing like the guy I wanted him to play like in year 1. He's back to being that. I got to make sure that continues.
Yeah, and I just felt like we're all going to look at the stat line. We're all going to look at the points. And the 3 previous games, he averaged 35 points and 17 boards. And tonight he was right on that average, probably just a little bit better. But the point is that it wasn't just the scoring. It wasn't just the rebounding. It wasn't just the block shots. To me, George, it was the effort that I saw. When Anthony Davis is bringing the ball up the floor and he turns the ball over, an unforced error, but he's starting to make his way back on defense and he intercepts a pass. He's giving you every bit of effort that he's got. And it seemed like he was doing it till the very end of the game, because even at the end of the game, he blocked a shot by DeAndre Ayton. He stole a ball. I got to say, Anthony Davis is, at least over the last 4 games, back to the player that many of us, myself included, forgot that he once was.
Oh, yeah. I don't think there's any question about it. Like, I think that this is the guy I called the cheat code. Now, you made fun of me when I called him the cheat code.
I'm still making fun of you for it.
But he's the cheat code. But you see what I mean now when you see him put up these kind of monster efforts in 4 straight games.
Yeah, no, it's very impressive what Anthony Davis has done. And I don't feel like tonight, even though the Lakers lost the game, I don't know how you feel about it, but I don't feel like downtrodden, like they competed. They lost it late. Yes, it's true. Phoenix was missing a lot of their pieces, but the Lakers didn't have LeBron. And I just felt like at least tonight they showed that they belonged on the same floor. And again, Anthony Davis is becoming the player the Lakers franchise needs him to be. Can you imagine just a couple weeks ago, you and I were talking about, might they consider trading Anthony Davis now?
Yeah, not the case anymore for sure. Yeah, he's exactly what they need. He is the number 1 option regardless of who's on the floor, and he's playing like it. And he needs to continue to play like this. This is the guy they're going to need. They're going to need Shaq-like efforts during his heyday with the Lakers. These type of efforts we've seen from Anthony Davis, the bubble Davis, whatever you want to call it. This is the guy they need to see the whole season to give them a shot to be in the postseason. And then perhaps, you know, we'll see from there. And maybe the Lakers could actually be buyers at the deadline and add some depth and maybe not have to give up the farm because they may not have to be as desperate. So, but
you know what they got to do now?
What?
You know what they got to do now? They got to win the next 2 games.
Because, San Antonio, for sure. Right. I mean, you got to win those games. Yeah. By the way, LeBron will be back on Friday.
Yeah, but you can't drop one of those games.
No.
You have to win both of these games. Look, they still haven't won a game on the road yet. So you got to win these next 2 games. Again, you dug yourself a hole. You're trying to dig yourself out. Tonight, no shame in, nobody, I don't think anybody really expected them to win this game, but they competed. They battled back twice during this game. They lost it late, but they got to win these next 2.
Yeah, no moral victories for this team. That's not how they roll. But to your point, 100%, they were in this game, and to your point, I feel better than some of the stuff we saw early in the season, no doubt. But must wins the next 2. You got to beat these teams that aren't very good and/or are tanking, because the Lakers are starting to kind of finally feel like a team, but led by Anthony Davis, which is exactly what they need, and they're getting reinforcements with LeBron. If those 2 can become the unit we saw a couple of years ago, or any semblance of that, the Lakers become at least somewhat dangerous moving forward. Kind of like
Certainly
you and me.
Very dangerous. You and me, very dangerous. Them just trying to get competitive.
Yes, just like you and me. 4 to 7 each and every afternoon on 710 ESPN. We got one more show on Wednesday before the Thanksgiving holiday. Make sure you tune in each and every weekday, 4 to 7 for Sedano and Cap. This has been Sedano and Recap.